Welcome to the Asset Value Accelerator bonus presentation. The assets of your business is what's going to determine the valuation of your practice. So it's important to really understand what are the assets so that you can accelerate improvement of their value. A lot of the concepts that I'm going to be talking about today, I got from 24 Assets, which is a book by Daniel Priestley, which is about business in general. But in this um bonus material, I'm going to repurpose it for more specifically towards medical practices. So, the assets that a business should develop to scale effectively and create long term value. So, developing these specific assets that we're going to talk about is going to allow you to scale more rapidly and also maximize the value of your practice. So, the key assets of your business, it's important to identify what the key assets are and not just and know the difference between the different key assets so you can focus on each one and improve them. Develop the key assets to maximize your practice valuation. So number one, there's the branding assets. So branding assets relate to the brand of your practice, and they attract attention and build trust in your business so that they'll patients will want to work with you and increase your business. So that includes examples of branding assets are your practice name and logo. So it's worth investing in deciding a nice logo that you're going to use for your practice. And it's also worth spending some time in developing the name for your practice. I would advise against naming it after yourself because then that kind of limits your growth if you are aiming to making a practice that has many providers. If it's named after yourself, that it might be hard to convince other doctors to want to be part of that practice. So, and then if you have to change the name later, that's more work and legal and stuff that you have to do. That's going to cost money and time. So think about the future. Don't just think about where you're starting. Think about where you want your practice to go when you're deciding on the name for your practice. And definitely, you should have a website. I know colleagues that don't have websites. I mean, nowadays everybody needs to have a website. So you have to have a website that talks about your practice and not just the basic information, but what makes your practice unique and about your services and highlight why your services are better are the best. And you should also consider part of your brand what is your practice aesthetics. I mean, when you go to your practice, when patients go to your practice, do they see a place that is clean, that is professional looking? That is important. That you want to eliminate clutter. You want to have not too many bright colors or anything like that. You want something that is clean, uh, calm, helps patients relax so they can be taken care of. And you want your practice reputation in the community and among your colleagues is also part of your brand. So if you're a practice that is known for excellent service and really good patient care and bedside manner, that's part of your brand. So you want to develop all these areas of your brand. And then there's the market assets. So what are the market assets? Those are they define and control the market or the market that you serve. So that would include your patient list, and that is you can once you have a patient list that is several thousand patients, if you have a new service for your patients, you can communicate it to them through your electronic medical record. Market assets are your referral sources, the relationships you have with different referral physicians or patients, word of mouth. If patients are very satisfied with your service because you did everything that we teach you in the middle section of this course on lean methodology to improve value to our patients, they're going to be talking to all their friends and telling them to come see you. And we get a lot of that type of referrals from word of mouth from different patients. And sometimes you can talk to hospital systems and tell them that you will see their patients on a timely manner, and that could be another market asset if you have referrals from the hospital system. And also your catchment area. If you're practicing in an area that is there's a lot of people living there, millions of people ideally, or that is growing, and that have the means to afford medical services. Unfortunately, that's the reality of our country. Not everybody has access to medical care. So that takes us to the next market asset, which is your payer mix. Practice that has a good payer mix, meaning low HMO, is going to be valued better than one that is highly HMO or poor payer mix. Your product assets, that refers to the value you deliver efficiently. And in section 2 of this course or program, we talk about how to maximize the value we give our patients. So that's one aspect of product assets, the service that you provide. But that's really not an asset because you can't really scale it. It's really dependent on your efforts that service that you do. Seeing patients, unfortunately, doesn't pay that well. To help your practice survive, you need to have other assets like procedures that you do, surgeries, infusion services, imaging services, all these ancillary assets that will help definitely increase the value of your practice and really subsidize seeing patients. And you want to have system assets that they ensure smooth operations and scalability of your practice. And this is basically everything that we focus on in section 2 of this program, where we talk to you about how to implement lean methodology in your practice. So systems that are lean and that increase the value that we provide patients in an efficient and low cost way. So systems are basically a framework that organize different processes that make your business run very efficiently and provide maximum value to your patients. Controls are there to prevent medical practice and business errors by providing oversight and redundancy in critical tasks. So if you have large money transactions, you want to have redundancy in the people that oversee that transaction. You want people that are unrelated and that are responsible for um, checking each other's work to make sure there's no embezzlement or fraud or anything like that. And also to make sure that you're not a victim of cyber fraud, like happened to my practice. And after that happened, we have now controls where any transaction more than a certain amount, a few $1,000s, needs to be approved by the owners. But now that we belong to a big practice, they have their own controls to make sure there's no cyber fraud or um, embezzlement or any problems like that. Your technology stack is also a system asset. So it's very important that you have a good EMR that allows you to have a lot of order sets and to do a lot of things with your data, measure it. Even often, what you measure, you can improve. So that helps you improve, but also allows you to optimize the areas where you get the most value or most profit from your work. And there's also ways to de-identify patient data, and that can be something that can be an asset too, and it's something that to consider. Of course, patients have to, even if it's de-identified, they have to consent to that. And then there's legal and intellectual property. If you're making inventions or systems, or if you have contracts that are very favorable, either with hospitals or doctors or other partners, that would increase the value of your practice. And your financial model. Sometimes if you have a very good financial model in the way you run your practice, that incentivizes everybody to be productive and improve the valuation of your practice, that is a huge and system asset. There's the culture assets. They build a strong internal foundation for your practice, and that would include your leadership team. Getting that leadership team in your practice that took time and effort to recruit those people and to train them, that's a valuable asset. Organizational culture. If you've If we discuss in this program, if you teach your staff, your management, your physicians to value lean methodology and speak the language and foment the culture of maximizing value to our patients, that is definitely an asset for your practice and something that you can use when justifying a higher valuation for your practice. And then the talent that you have in your practice in terms of employees, that's also a value for the practice. And any special alliances or partnerships that are part of your business, that your business has with other um, businesses, can also be a culture asset that will increase the value of your practice. So when you're selling your practice, you want to make sure you mention and highlight why you have these assets and how they're increasing the value of your practice. So asset optimization, if you optimize all the assets that we just mentioned, that's going to help you transition from owning your job to owning a highly valuable business, which is a very valuable asset. So it transitions you from labor intensive, meaning your labor, seeing patients, to asset rich, where your business is not just relying on your services for its valuation, but it has a lot of assets, ancillary assets in systems, that's culture, um, and services, and brand, that market, that are going to make your business very valuable, not just because you work hard and you're good at seeing patients, but because of all these assets that you've optimized in your practice. And when you optimize these assets of market, um, products, services you provide, culture, and that's going to make your practice a lot more scalable. It's going to help accelerate scalability of your practice, which in turn also maximizes your practice valuation. That's it. If you focus on these areas, your practice is going to be very valuable in the eyes of many buyers. Good luck.